Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ERP Cannabis Made Easy webinar series. We have a focus today on production operations, and we'll be covering that topic with a demo and a discussion about our experience with using ERP Cannabis for production operations. And my name is Joel Halverson, and I am the lead architect for ERP Cannabis. My contact information is provided on the screen that you all should be able to see. And you also have the ability to submit questions, and you can do that in the right side of your screen, your WebEx screen. You can enter a question and post it, and we will have some time at the end of the webinar to cover the questions that have been submitted during the course of the presentation. So I'll be starting out and having an overview of the ERP Cannabis solution so you can see the big picture, and then we'll have Ben go into a demo of how production operations can be managed with ERP Cannabis. And then we'll have Nate, one of our subject matter experts in the area of product costing, go through and look at the reports and analysis and the experience that he's had supporting clients in this area. So Jake is controlling our presentation today. If we can go to the next slide. So ERP Cannabis is a cloud-based, complete, true ERP system that has been designed, of course, specifically for the cannabis industry. And as you can see from the diagram, the financials are at the core of the ERP Cannabis solution, and that really was the initial driver for the development of this solution, was the need for a complete ERP solution, including the financial module that would, of course, drive the reporting that's required within the industry, but also be able to accurately capture all of the activities that go on in each of the companies that are in the industry. So from a production planning perspective, you want to be able to capture all of your costs and accurately then report on the cost of goods sold. So ERP Cannabis includes a production planning module at the core, as a core capability of the ERP solution. And on top of that, we have a cultivation management module that, of course, is specific to the cannabis industry. And all of the production planning, cultivation management activity, as well as anything that happens on the front end with the point of sale system, is integrated to the back end compliance system, which is represented by the track and trace bubble on the diagram. So we are Colorado-based, and so, of course, we are integrated with Metric and able to pass information directly from the production planning module, for example, in terms of a production batch, directly to Metric. And we also have an HR, human resources, payroll, and time entry module. So we're able to capture employee information, relevant data for each employee that then can be used for processing payroll directly in the ERP system, which is a unique capability for the ERP Cannabis solution. On the front end, we have a point of sale module for managing operations, sales activity in the dispensary. And all of the information, all of the modules are interconnected so that information is shared, and the ERP database contains all of the information that's needed or that is generated through the ERP system, which is then made available for reporting and analytics, which is a critical component, and being able to capture all of the data and report it in the most useful way for your particular situation is a critical success factor in leveraging the investment that you make in a true ERP system, such as ERP Cannabis. So it is a suite in the box, and we have all of the capabilities streamlined so that essentially the implementation and use of ERP Cannabis is standardized and simplified to make it as useful as possible. So when we talk about ERP made easy, we are really reflecting one of our values in the development of ERP Cannabis, which is to streamline and simplify to make it as useful as possible. But of course, it's built for growth so that as your company grows, you're able to utilize the ERP investment appropriately and grow it along with growth within your own company. And as I said previously, analytics are a part of every process so that you can have full access to whatever data is needed for reporting and decision making and analysis of your operations. And continuous innovation. It is built on SAP as the core ERP platform, and so combined with the more than 40 years of innovation and expertise that SAP has provided to industries around the world, we are able to leverage that and provide it in a simplified, easy-to-use type of interface that will allow you to take advantage of the proven track record of SAP, but in a very useful way for this particular industry. And mobility, being able to access it anytime, anywhere, of course, is critical as well. So on the next page, just in terms of our partners, so ERP Cannabis has, as I said, utilized the SAP platform as the core ERP software provider, and Quintel Management Consulting is a certified partner of SAP and has completed many implementations of many ERP implementations over the past 18 years, nearly 18 years, and across many different industries. So being able to leverage the expertise of Quintel in terms of implementing and supporting and developing the ERP Cannabis solution has been critical. BIMSR International provides our simplified user interface that includes what we refer to as forms, and Ben will show these forms in the demo for the production operations, and also how we have incorporated workflow and document management capability through that simplified interface. So BIMSR being an international software developer that really has focused on helping enterprises to simplify their processes with the tools that they have developed. And Hotbox is our cannabis-specific solution partner, and they have provided the cultivation module that we've integrated into ERP Cannabis, as well as the point-of-sale solution. So having a cannabis-specific focus, they're able to provide that expertise to really make ERP Cannabis a complete solution. So with that, I will turn it over to Ben, who will walk us through a demo of the production operations and highlight some of the features of the ERP Cannabis solution.
Thank you, Joel. As Joel said, I am Ben Halverson, and I'm going to start by demonstrating the standard production planning process in ERP Cannabis. I'll begin by entering a production planning user ID and password to log in into the Launchpad. And you'll see that there are various applications or tiles available by user role assignments and also available reports that are user role based. So for example, this user will have production planning reports and applications assigned. So here I'll select the production applications tile to get to the forms, and I'll select applications and then production, and I'll select the application icon to get a list of all the forms or applications that are production planning related. And we'll begin by creating the recipe for entering the formulas and operations for a material to be produced. So I'll select the company, I'll select the facility for where this material belongs to, in this case 1000, and then a recipe name. So I'll name this for the 4-gram cherry gummies that we're going to make. Then I'll select the material master. And I can enter search criteria under the materials section to search for the material master that I want to select. So I'll select the material, and then I'll select the target quantity for the recipe. So enter 10,000. And if I had any documentation for the recipe or bill of materials or the formulas, I can attach it here. So down below, I'll enter a process for the recipe. So this would be an activity or an operation for producing the material. I'll select add, select an activity. In this case, I'll select the production operator 2, the LPOP02 resource. I'll enter the hours that will estimate for producing these cherry gummies and the description. So this would be for using the gummy machine. I'll select OK to add it to the table. Now I'm going to enter my ingredients or bill of materials for producing the cherry gummies. So in this example, I'm going to select the material, and I'll enter search criteria for CBD isolate. And we're going to estimate that we'll use 1,000 grams for this recipe, and we can add additional details for this ingredient if needed. So we'll just say isolate for the gummy production, 1 kilogram. I'll select OK to add it to the table. And when complete, I'll select the send button at the top. And here we have the flow scheme for the entered recipe. And then I will go back and review the document and look at the processing messages, and it'll say that the recipe was saved for the material that we are going to produce. So now that the recipe has been created, the next step would be to create the process order. So the process order is the manufacturing order to plan resources and materials from the inventory and planning resources and operations for creating the material. So I'll select the company, I'll select the facility, and I'll select the material that is being produced. I'll search for the gummy material and select that. I'll select the recipe that was just created for this material. And I'll enter the target quantity for this process order and the unit of measure. I'll select each for the unit of measure. And I can update the start date of the process order if needed. When finished, I'll select the send button. And in this case, the process order is under workflow management. so that the process order document and the information entered will go to the approver to review. And if the approver approves it, we'll select the button. And the operation has been succeeded. And here you'll see the flow scheme of the approval process and workflow management, and also the flow history to see who was the submitter and who was the approver. We'll look at the document to review the processing messages of the process order, and it has been successfully created. And you'll see that the process order number has been generated.
So Ben, I just want to highlight a few things here. So as you can see, this particular form included the workflow management so that you're able to specify who may need to either be notified to review and approve the particular transaction, in this case, the creation of a process order within the system. So as Ben is going through and showing these forms and how the recipe was created and how the process order was created, you can see that the drop-down menus that were used throughout that process are grabbing master data from the back end. So within the ERP system, of course, there's master data such as companies, such as facilities, such as materials or products, and of course we created a recipe. But all of that data is contained within the ERP system and made available to the user through the drop-down, so that as a user of ERP Cannabis that simply needs to create a process order, for example, the form provides an easy way of making sure that all of the information that's included on that particular process order request is legitimate and is not going to, for example, cause an inconsistency or a processing error within the ERP system. So if any of you have familiarity with ERP systems, you know that that can often happen. And again, in our emphasis of making ERP easy, we have utilized this interface for that purpose. So just wanted to emphasize a few points there, Ben. You can keep going with the demo now. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Joel. So now that the process order has been created, the next step would be to create the production confirmation. And the production confirmation sets the order to either partial or final completion and confirms the actual resources and materials used in the order. So I'll select the order number that was just created. I'll go to the last record and select process order 100837 for the gummies. And I'll select the activity that we created from the recipe. So I'll select the gummy machine operation. I can select the new start date and end date from the calendar. And I'll enter the actual hours worked. So in this case, it was 3 hours and a quarter. And this would be the final confirmation. And now I'll select the material that was used based on the recipe to enter the actual materials used in the order. I'll select the material based on the recipe. So I'll select isolate and the quantity used in the order. So 900. And I'll select the measured grams. And then the storage location where the material was stored. So when I'm done entering the time and material confirmation, I'll select the add confirmation to add it to the record time and materials table below. So you'll see the table has been updated, and when complete, I'll select the send button, and the operation has been succeeded. So I'll look at the processing messages of my production order confirmation, and it has been saved successfully. So now that I've entered my confirmations, and that was for the final confirmation, now I can receive the material that has been produced into inventory. So the next step would be to create the production receipt. So with reference to the process order that we created and have confirmed, I'll select that. Go to the final record for the cherry gummies. And I'll select who received it. I'll say it was me. And then additional information for the production receipt. So I'll say that the production run is received, and I'll enter the actual production quantity that I'm going to receive into inventory. So I'll enter the quantity delivered, 10,000. I'll enter the batch ID for this production run. The storage location and additional comments for the received production item. And also there we have metric integration to the production receipt, so that the material that has been received into inventory will have a metric package ID tag and license tied to the material. So I'll select the metric license, and I'll select the metric package ID, and then the production batch that will be tied to metric. I'll select OK when finished. Now the actual production quantity has been updated. Now I'm done with that, and I'll select Send. And this is under approval workflow management as well, so this would go to the approver for review. And if they approve it, they would select Approve, and the operation has been succeeded. And I'll look at the processing messages of the production receipt, and it says that the material document was posted successfully. So this means that the material document increased inventory in the system and also would show up on the balance sheet as semi-finished good increase. So now that we had the material received in inventory, we can look at the supplies inventory report and see that the live data has been updated for the report with the new material quantity received for the gummies. So we'll go into the report. You'll see all materials that are material type supplies will appear here with the quantity available and material price. And I'll go search for the gummy material that we just created and received, and you'll see that the report has the updated inventory amount under the supplies location. So as well as the supplies inventory report, we can look at the confirmations report, which will show the actual cost line items that were assigned to the process order when we were posting the production confirmations. So I'll select the confirmation report. And it'll give me a prompt selection. So I'll select the order that we just created and received and confirmed. Select OK and let it load. And then the actual cost line items will appear here that we entered for this process order. So you'll see that we had the 3.25 hours of operations on the gummy machine, and also the 900 grams of isolate that was used for the gummies. So now I will hand it over to Joel.
All right, thank you, Ben. So just to summarize that process, I just wanted to go back to the presentation, Jake. If you could share your screen So Ben showed us how the forms are used, and one thing that is important to note as part of it is, of course, for the demo, Ben was the user who was able to go through each of the different forms and do what needed to be done. But just so it's clear that ERP Cannabis is based on a security model so that each user would have permissions to access the appropriate forms based upon the work that that particular user is responsible for. And stop right there, Jake. I want to talk a little bit about that slide to summarize. But just to be clear that you could have different users, for example, that would set up recipes, and you would have your lab technicians that would input their information in terms of hours and ingredients that have been used for each of the different confirmations that are posted, and you may have a production planner who would input the process order, or you may just have a person who does all three of those things. Again, it's flexible so that you're able to set up ERP Cannabis for the particular situation that or requirement that you may have. But just to summarize what Ben showed, the recipe was created first, and that includes your planned labor resources. It could also include your planned equipment resources that are used as part of the production process, and also your planned bill of materials that would include your ingredients and raw materials. So your bill of materials may include other components that were produced previously, so you could, of course, end up with a linkage from one type of production activity to another, and being able to track all the way through that process until the final product is produced. So the process order has been created, and of course you can have multiple production runs for products and have those scheduled on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever the appropriate time frame might be. But that would be a repeatable process. But for each process order that is created, the production operations can be posted against that particular process order, so that for each production run that's done, you have the appropriate costs in the form of labor and equipment time or raw materials used for each of those production activities. And then the production cost analysis is what happens, of course, after all of this data has been put into the system, and you want to evaluate, for example, your planned versus actual costs. So your planned cost would be your recipe. The actual cost is what would be posted through the confirmation form, and you would then analyze that and adjust your standard cost estimate for the product that was produced, or adjust the recipe if there are inconsistencies or large variances between your planned and actual costs. But the idea is that you would rationalize that and make sure that as you go forward, appropriate adjustments are made so that you can continue to increase the accuracy of your production planning activities. And then, of course, automatically determine the cost of goods sold based upon all of the activity that has been posted for a particular process order, and then being able to report cost of goods sold on a company-wide basis as part of your financial reporting as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Nate, who will talk about the experience that he's had and take us through a few examples of the different types of reports that he typically uses in going through the analysis of the production costing activities. So, Nate?
My name is Nathan Berman, and as Joel had mentioned, I do a lot of the work on both the financial accounting side and the managerial accounting side. And one thing that the solution helps provide is melding those two elements, which, particularly in the industry we're working in, drives a lot of our business, and costing our products and knowing our costs on everything are very crucial to business. So the solution not only provides an easy way of recording these kind of things, as Ben had described, but also from a reporting perspective, excuse me, from a reporting perspective, an easy way to churn out some reports. So Jake has a few kind of report examples here that provide both a graphical display as well as just a kind of standard, almost Excel-based kind of version. So there's multiple ways to kind of break down product analysis that we have, and that ranges from revenue to cost of goods sold to, individual profitability. So this report that Jake has here in front of us is a cost of goods sold, and what's great about this type of report, and what you can't see on the screen, is that there are filtered categories basically, and based upon the type of data, I can either a very broad, specific level. For example, I could just have the soft gel and sublingual showing, or I could have my full product line. And then furthermore, if I want to get into an even more detailed analysis, I could change this graphical representation to be more inclusive of specific products or product line. So for example, if we look at this report at the far right-hand column, we have a general profit center we call veterinary. Within veterinary, we have 3 different product lines: equine, canine, dog paw balm. And then within that basically product line, we have several different products. And so what's great about a report like this is I can get both a very broad perspective, if that's all I want to kind of look at things on a very high level, or if I want to do kind of a deep dive into the type of analysis I'm doing, that's also very full. Furthermore, what's great about not only this but all the other reports is a specific user can generate these reports, export them in a very easy manner so that they can be shared collectively with, management group or a team. And for a person like me, I'm very interested in reports like this. But for some people that might be in an executive or C-suite type of position, these reports are also very good because it provides, like I said, a very high level kind of view without having to do too much digging. So they can call things up without having to get too deep into the actual things. So there is reports for this. We have cost of goods sold. You can look at sales revenue. We have a gross margin one. They're all basically the same kind of layout. And like I said, a lot of different filter criteria, a lot of different drill down we can get into. And as we look at the next report, we can look at these type of reports in more of a kind of traditional type of layout that we'd see. So what we're looking at here on this one is I just pulled 2 products just to have a quick view of these. And this report is great because it provides a good insight into kind of my day-to-day operations. So for example, if I look at either of these products in the top section of this report, I've got both a scope into my current inventory as well as sales, my average sales price. That's what the average price is. So basically, I have my standard retail price, but of course I have certain situations where I might sell with a discount, or I might have a wholesale price, or that sort of thing. So it takes the aggregate amount of sales we divided by the total, the average price. Our current cost is that's similar to that slide Joel showed earlier, where we take our bill of materials and associated recipe, which is basically the steps used in producing this product, generate an expected cost on this. And then this shows us kind of a quick gross margin and potential profit we can get if we multiply our average price by our current cost multiplied by the inventory. So that's kind of the top section is kind of a forward-looking report, whereas our bottom section is a kind of to-date report. So it shows, whereas the top one shows our kind of inventory and our potential profit, our bottom one shows our actual sales volume. So just pulled two other just kind of quick rough examples. This shows us our cost, top on our revenue. So we did 2160 or 2,160 of these capsules. We brought in revenue of $3,240. So that gives us our average price against our projected cost or our actual cost, and then the resulting gross margin. With the far right-hand column kind of working as like basically a big overall viewpoint. So these are kind of quick reports that anybody can call up, and like I said, they can be exported very easily and are very useful.
And I would also just add to that, Nate, that these are standard reports that we've developed as part of the ERP Cannabis solution, but we do have the ability to modify these reports as needed for whatever requirement you might have, or for whatever different reporting requirement you may need. So we certainly have the tools available to us within the ERP Cannabis solution to easily take the data that's in the ERP system and develop an appropriate report for your specific requirements. So as you can see, they're formatted in a consistent way and makes it very readable and very presentable to show to others within your organization or any external stakeholders that you might have as well. But we have a lot of flexibility in terms of what information is included on these reports and how these reports are developed. So,
right.
Go ahead, Nate.
To kind of add on to that, I would also say, even with the standard reports, there's a lot of flexibility built in terms of filters or that sort of thing. So, based on, kind of your structure, whether, report can be created, but a lot of times there's enough sort of depth and filter and sort of just general data that's collected, and it's just depending on how you parse it, that could really cover a lot of your, reporting requirements or desires. So if you could just go to the next slide, Jake. So this is just a test data of some quick income statement that's reported. Pretty straightforward here. One thing that we do have that's a little bit different is we build in kind of a managerial costing aspect into this. So we have several different reports in terms of the income statement. This particular one melds both financial accounting and managerial accounting. So a person who is using this report can look at it, and I see what my overall, revenue, gross margin is from a revenue and cost of goods sold perspective, but also dives into, what did it actually take to produce my goods? And so, for a kind of advanced user or a C-suite type of person, this is great because it shows them both an kind of outward financial looking perspective, but also kind of an inward managerial accounting type of view to see how production is actually being executed and recorded. And additionally to this report as well, there's not a slide for it, but there's a very kind of quick layout version. We have two that just shows basically revenue, cost of goods sold, expenses, gross margin, net income, and sort of a 5-line report. So all these reports, they're already built out, and they can be from very broad. I just want to see my gross margin and my net income to as detailed as I want to see every line item on my GL. So that's
all right. Thanks. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Nate. Just to make the point, with the standard financial statements that are provided, income statements, balance sheet statements, and different versions of those, as Nate was saying, are available. And in this particular case, of course, coming from the production operations perspective and being able to capture all of the costs that are associated with all of the production activities or operations as part of the cost of goods sold is, of course, a critical element and part of the automation essentially that happens, so that based upon all of the data that's put into the system, the processing of that into the appropriate categories is all set up in a standard way to account for the appropriate costs and in the cost of goods sold category. So those assumptions and how that is set up is standard, as I said, but of course can be changed for specific requirements or regulations that you may need it changed for depending upon your situation and where you are operating and how you are operating. So a lot of flexibility on the reporting side with the dashboard reports, the list type of reports that Ben had shown previously with looking at supplies inventory, for example, and then also standard financial reporting that's available. So with that,
right.
I will
I guess one thing I'd just like to add on there is what's really beneficial here is a basically standard costing method, and we do this because we work in a repetitive manufacturing industry whereby we produce basically the same sort of goods consistently, and we generate basically an expected cost for each thing, and it's really from a production run to production run that we will notice variance. And so the system as a whole is very accommodating for that. To not only we can plug in our bill of materials or a recipe to generate our expected cost, but in terms of when actual production runs are executed, we can easily and quickly identify variances that are associated with it, whether it's extra time that was required, extra materials that are required, but it provides a very kind of managerial look into how efficient are my employees being, how efficient are my resources being used, is my cost appropriate, or do I need to reevaluate these?
Thanks, Nate. So just with the time that we have, we can open it up to questions now, or if there are comments from any of the panelists in terms of additional information to be shared with our guests on the webinar today, please feel free to jump in. I see that there is one question that I've received. Will this presentation be shared with the participants? So you can see that my email address is there, and if you are interested in having a copy of the presentation, please send me an email and I would be happy to respond with the presentation document. I would also say that the webinar has been recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel, our ERP Cannabis YouTube channel. So it can be accessed there as well and shared with others. We have other videos that are available on our YouTube channel, so that if you're interested in other areas beyond just production operations or just want to see a little bit more of how ERP Cannabis can be used, that would be a good opportunity for you to do that on our YouTube channel. So the one thing that I did want to address before our time is up today is just the challenges that are associated with utilizing an ERP system in general, but also the ERP Cannabis solution specifically. Obviously, one of the challenges that we know about based upon the fact that we have years of experience with ERP solutions and implementation, is that it is a commitment to utilize the complete functionality that is provided through an ERP solution. And of course, having the commitment to do that is critical so that the information that goes into the ERP solution is as valuable as possible, making the reports and the analysis that come out of it as valuable as possible. So, Nate, just in terms of your experience in working with clients and production operations and the production costing activities, what would you say are the challenges that you've had and lessons learned that come out of that?
Sure. Thanks, Joel. I think just probably the biggest one is really just seeing the entire scope of what this solution provides and getting everybody, just production people to executives to accountants, just all on the same page, because this is a solution that, is very helpful. And getting people to understand the concept of everything is definitely a big time challenge, because if you think of somebody like a production worker, their main focus is on just producing the goods themselves, whereas they might not be as concerned with how long did it take me or how much of materials did it take me, because they're really just focused on their work. And it's really been we've just had to work through some challenges in terms of educating people on how what the importance of recording their type of work is. And this solution has been very helpful because it's from an interface perspective very user friendly and not too overly complicated. For kind of heavy users, there's a lot more nuance that goes into it in terms of capturing the data in the manner you want and showing it in the manner you want. But for even just kind of very basic users, the layout is very simple that not only does it make it kind of easy for them to use, to kind of communicate the way the whole system ties together and how each piece of data they provide and how everybody's job and the work they do being captured is really vital to making sure everything is important. But compared to a lot of other kind of, I think, ERP solutions, like I said, the usability is really helpful in terms of helping bridge that gap in kind of a quick manner. And I mean, from an industry kind of perspective as a whole, the industry is definitely getting more condensed and margin being more important. What your products are that make money and what your products cost, and what the margin is on each thing is more and more vital every day as the business environment gets more competitive. And being able to kind of create these type of things, reports or just kind of checks on inventory and checks on costing, is really going to be absolutely crucial as the kind of marketplace evolves.
Good. Thanks, Nate. I guess to summarize, that would be, the critical, the lesson learned is the education piece and helping everyone see the big picture and how you can capture that basically through what you're doing with the ERP system, but then also sharing the results so that they can see that based upon the information that's being provided, we have good information coming out of it that's useful for everyone in the organization to understand how we are performing. So, very good. Any other questions that anyone has at this point? You can post them. If so, I would like to thank everybody for taking the time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We do have other webinars scheduled, actually one each month, and the schedule is on our website at erpcannabis.com, and you can feel free to review that schedule and, of course, sign up for the next ERP Made Easy webinar, which is planned for the 2nd of October, and we will be covering the seed to sale process as part of that webinar. So again, if you have any questions, comments, or would like to request the presentation document, please send me an email, which is in front of you, joel.halverson@erpcannabis.com. So thanks to everyone who participated. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Jake, for covering the presentation. And thank you all for attending. Have a good day.
Thank you.